Hi, my name's Heather O'Keefe, and I'm from Stepstones for Youth. I'm going to be presenting today with Marsha Ramprasad on a project that we have here at Stepstones for Youth called Safe at Home. This is a homeless prevention program for youth in and from the foster care system. Stepstones for Youth has been operating in Toronto since 2004, and we have a program that we work with young people from the foster care system or the group home system who are living in or transitioning out of that system. Most of the young people in our program are between the age of 10 and 26. Most of the young people are coming to us with very little support from their family. They don't have support networks. Most of them have a history of trauma and abuse and are economically disadvantaged. The goal of our program at Stepstones is to create positive and meaningful connections to increase a young person's sense of belonging and to allow them the ability to move on in their life and thrive. At Stepstones, we focus on increasing school engagement, increasing graduation rates, and post-secondary enrollment. We also focus on increasing stable housing and improving a young person's mental and physical health and well-being. When we meet these objectives, young people secure housing, they engage in school, they graduate from high school, they reduce their isolation and criminal involvement, and overall, they reduce the long-term dependency on the social services in our community. We have seen that when these positive outcomes are achieved with young people, they can thrive and they have an environment that they are able to accomplish their goals. At Stepstones, we believe that every young person from the foster care system, the child protection system, has the right to belong to people who care about them. We believe that they have the intrinsic ability to succeed. They just have to have the support around them in order for that to be possible. We believe that we need to correct the injustices that these young people have faced through no fault of their own. We believe that communities and extended families have the ability to care for their young people. They just need support. We believe that long-term, sustainable change is preferable to any short-term intervention because we want this to be lifetime change that we're seeing. And our goal is to support young people in becoming who they are and who they want to be. We believe that positive outcomes are possible when a young person belongs. That we see that when housing and people are introduced into a young person's life, they can succeed and they can meet their goals. In a given year, there's an average of 9,300 young people living in the Ontario foster care system. These young people have been apprehended from their family due to trauma, abuse, or neglect. Every year, approximately 1,000 of these young people exit the foster care system when they reach the age of majority. While in foster care, it is common for young people to move frequently between placements, even between cities. A conservative estimate is that children and young people move approximately once a year that they're in care. So if you can imagine, if a young person was in the care system for 7 years, they would move to 7 different foster homes. Moving completely disrupts everything about their life. They have to move their friends. They have to move their education. They have to change schools completely. They have to change their teacher, their peer groups, their extracurricular activities. This impacts their ability to connect with other young people. It impacts their ability to secure education. It impacts their ability to feel a sense of belonging. It also impacts their ability to move forward and to have that group of that support network, that natural support network, when they are going to be forced to be exiting the foster care system. Up until the pandemic, when young people turned 18, they were required to leave their foster home and group home placements and live on their own. But evidence shows much of the instability that young people face while they're in care follows them into young, and later adulthood.
Poor outcomes among youth leaving care are documented. More than half of youth leaving foster care don't complete high school. In today's heavily credentialed society, lacking a high school education and even post-secondary education can severely limit a young person's employment and future prospects. Many youth leaving care find themselves trapped in precarious and low-income employment sectors. It's unsurprising that many experience poverty, and more than half come to rely on government income supports. For many youth, leaving their foster and group home equates to a loss of their social support system. All of these factors increase the risk of these young people experiencing homelessness. In 2020, Melanie Doucette reported youth from foster care are 200 times more likely to become homeless compared to their peers who were never in care. And in 2017, the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness further reported across the country there are approximately 35,000 youth experiencing homelessness. And among those 35,000 youth, nearly 2/3, 58% of these young people have been involved with the Child Protection Services. The goal of the Safe at Home program is to address the issue of homelessness among youth in and leaving foster care. In the next few slides, I'll provide some more details about the Safe at Home program model, and then I'll end by sharing some preliminary data from our pilot year. Given the documented challenges faced by young people leaving care and the overwhelming connection between foster care and homelessness, Stepstones undertook a research study of housing initiatives that have been employed internationally to find evidence-based recommendations to disrupt this trajectory into homelessness for youth leaving care. We identified 57 programs that tackled both housing and belonging as intervention or prevention methods. It was important for us to find programs that could best support this unique population of youth. We recognize that support networks, belonging, and housing must be core intervention methods for youth leaving care. Based on this research, in consultation with youth and community support agencies, and rooted in data collected on youth outcomes for 10 years, Stepstones developed the Safe at Home program. This program centers on the belief that every young person deserves and has the right to belong with people who love and value them unconditionally throughout the course of their life. And this relationship is a protective factor in preventing the youth from becoming homeless. The goal of the program is to utilize the knowledge generated at Stepstones over the last 10 years of supporting youth and focus on these two key factors, housing and belonging. This model shifts the focus from traditional and limited understandings of family and support networks onto communities and caregivers' capacity to create long-term stability for young people from care. On this slide, I've mapped out the Safe at Home program model, and I'll take you through each step. The model begins in consultation with youth. Youth will work with connection workers to identify connections from their past that they would like us to reach out to. Next, workers and youth reach out to people in their lives through research, phone calls, emails, social media, and try to build a network of 100 connections in the youth's life. As youth begin to grow these connections, youth and their workers try to define these relationships and determine specific roles those connections will play in youth's lives, on a spectrum from calling a youth every 3 weeks, providing educational support, all the way up to providing a room for youth in their homes. Our ultimate goal is to find one connection among the 100 connections that will provide a longer-term home and caregiver role for the youth, even if the youth doesn't physically move into this home immediately. The youth must be able to move in if and when they want to. They must feel that they belong to this home and that they can go to this home anytime, including holidays and other special occasions. If this relationship is created, the caregiver will be screened by Stepstones and then presented to the Child Protection Agency as a possible person for the youth to live with. If the Child Protection Agency agrees, the youth and their worker can start preparing to secure this connection. For youth over the age of 18, if no pre-existing connections are available or able to provide a home, the Never Too Late program will provide support to find an ally in the community to do so. Next, we will find one connection from the 100 Connections network to provide a secondary home that youth can plan to go to when they or their primary caregivers require space or support. Workers also will find 5 connections that will make formal and tangible commitments to support the new relationship between youth and their caregivers. For example, these 5 connections may agree to take youth out for dinner once a month, take the youth to a cultural or religious event monthly, or even tutor the youth once per week. Lastly, youth will work with their workers to identify a mediator or elder within their 100 connections, who can provide informal mediation and assistance with the relationship between youth, their caregiver, and their support network. As a whole, the model relies on a minimum of 8 unique individuals to support a young person: 1 primary home, 1 secondary home, 5 connections, and 1 elder or mediator. If these connections cannot be found in the youth's existing network, volunteers in the community who take on a mentorship relationship are connected to the youth. At this stage, youth are welcome to move into their primary home with their new caregiver. If youth aren't ready on this timeline, they're supported to gradually build their comfort in this new space. Stepstones provide support for youth to set up their new homes by providing bedding, toiletries, decorations, and other items that will help youth personalize their new space. Stepstones also provides caregivers with frames and other items they can put around the space to ensure youth feel like they're part of the family and that they belong. This stage of the program was initially 90 days during the pilot, but has been extended to 180 days. The youth then moves on to the second stage of the program. At this stage, adults who are supporting youth will receive training and peer-to-peer support. Adults and youth will receive trauma and permanency-informed therapy. Youth will receive a support network connections coordinator to support their new connections and to ensure that they are ongoing and remain supportive. The connections coordinator will intervene if necessary. Youth's connections and newly formed support networks will also receive a service navigator that will help them by providing resources, including support with additional mental health services, education, employment, recreation, culture, etc. This stage of the program, the second stage, is intended to last for a year and a half and is a critical component of the program to ensure long-term stability. Importantly, all caregivers are screened, trained, and offered ongoing support to ensure moves are successful over time. We believe in the transformational potential of this model and piloted the Safe at Home program in the past year. Eligible youth included those who are currently in foster care, were currently receiving the Continued Care and Support for Youth or CCSY benefit, or who were under the Voluntary Youth Services Agreement or VISA agreement. In total, 31 youth participated. Among the 31 youth who participated, the majority of youth, about 61%, identified as women. The range of age of participants was from 17 to 30 years old, though the majority, about 71%, were aged 21 or under. The majority of youth, about 77%, identified as belonging to a racialized group, with the two largest groups represented being Black youth at 52% and youth who identified as white or of European descent at 23%. 15 youth received support from their workers to identify long-term connections and grow their support networks, and 16 youth were supported to maintain current housing through housing subsidies and increasing their support networks. Housing costs were covered for all youth who participated. The costs to administer the Safe at Home program for one youth for 2 years is $8,600 or about $4,300 per year. So the cost to fund the pilot for 15 youth who were not in current housing but were supported to find housing for 2 years is going to be $129,000. We have since expanded the program, and there are currently an additional 10 youth in the program. Though we're in the early stages of implementation and evaluation of the program, we thought it would be helpful to share some of the early successes and challenges for the preliminary cohort of youth. In terms of successes, our workers have seen a direct relationship between housing stability and mental and emotional wellness. When in stable homes, youth were connected to and regularly accessed mental health supports they needed, often exacerbated and urgently needed due to COVID-19. In total, 23 or about 74% of the youth accessed mental health supports to address their trauma, anxiety, and depression this year. Housing stability also enhanced the health, safety, and security of these youth during the pandemic, many of whom otherwise would have been staying in emergency shelters, putting them at an increased risk of contracting COVID-19. All youth were supported to create connections in their lives. Some youth have successfully reconnected with family or moved in with family members they trust and feel comfortable with, while others have obtained long-term housing solutions with community allies such as mentors. In terms of challenges, with the lack of physical and social gatherings, workers reported some youth experienced difficulties engaging in programming. While the 90-day model holds significant promise, this timeline presented unique challenges during the pandemic when in-person visits were kept to a minimum. The virtual setting made it difficult for youth to create new relationships, feelings of trust, and to bond with mentors and other connections. The program has been adapted to allow for 180 days at the initial connection-seeking stage. Further challenges are presented in the need for ongoing evaluation, as the program is 2 years long, as well as the need for continuous monitoring and evaluation beyond 2 years to ensure that youth are stably housed beyond the end of the Safe at Home program.
Despite being at the preliminary stages of our pilot program and preliminary stages of our evaluation process, we're pretty excited about the results that we're seeing. We're starting to see young people get connected in their community to people who care about them and who are hopefully going to care about those young people long term. Thank you so much for attending this presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions at this time.